Well, Razorback fans, a question got posed to me about KJ Jefferson. What is he going to have to do to be considered the greatest Razorback quarterback of all time this season? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your next purchase. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday as we are 3 days away from Razorback football starting up. And just to let everybody know, in today's podcast, we're going to have actually a guest. We don't do a whole lot of guests very often here, but in the second segment, Bear McWhorter, who is a Razorback football commit from 2026, has offers to Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. That's all you need to know. But he's going to be joining us on the podcast for a little bit. We had a chance to actually pre-record an interview, so if the audio sounds a little different, that's why. But he joined us, and we got to talk to him about his commitment and everything, so really looking forward to playing that back for you here very soon. But I wanted to start off the podcast today with a question that got posed to me, and something that was of the discussion when we're looking at this upcoming football season, which, again, everyone's excited about. We're all pumped. Can't wait. All of that fun stuff. So basically, we know what we're getting in a lot of cases. But the one thing that has a lot of people, of course, feeling really good about the season is KJ Jefferson, right? KJ Jefferson is an incredible player. He's a guy that we're all big fans of. I'm a big fan of him. He's had really good numbers. He's had good stats. He's looked good. He's getting a lot of praise and accolades, maybe not enough at times, but we all know what he's capable of. But there's a few unique things about KJ Jefferson, folks, if you think about it in this regard. Like, think about the last time Arkansas had the same starting quarterback for 3 straight seasons. Like, think about that. You had the last one, at least, that comes to mind, was Brandon Allen, who started in 2013, 14, and 15. Now, pretty solid years, I'd say, but his teams that he was on went 3-9 and 7-6 and I guess 8-5. So had a losing season, but it was pretty rough. Matt Jones would have been the one. Well, I guess we could say Casey Dick in that regard. But, he was kind of an off and on starter for a bit, so I don't know if we can fully count him. But even so, like his final year, he went 5-7. Matt Jones was a 4-year starter, essentially, pretty close to it at least. And he ended up having a really good set of years, but in his final year, he did go 5-6, did have a losing record. Clint Sterner started for 3 seasons. 97 had a losing record, but 98 and 99 had some winning records and had some success there too. So, but the point is that you have a unique thing that doesn't happen very often, especially this day in college football, where you have the same starting quarterback for 3 straight years. That's what you have with KJ Jefferson. And what is also unique about KJ Jefferson is that if Arkansas has a winning record this season, which I think we all, even if you're the ultimate pessimist, you believe that this team's going to have a winning record, like 7-6, down to the worst case scenario. He's going to be the first quarterback, and at least in the SEC era, that had a winning record all 3 years, like all 3 seasons winning record. So that's a unique thing. And he's got a lot of great numbers. He's had some great moments so far. But the question becomes, knowing that he has those numbers and knowing that he's had a really good record as the quarterback of Arkansas, what is it going to take for him to be considered the greatest of all time in Razorback football history at quarterback? Well, that's a tough question, because I think everybody looks at it in their own perspectives of what classifies someone as the GOAT. What makes somebody the true GOAT of their teams and whatnot. Like, some people will look back on way back when on certain days, and others will look ahead to now, have some recency bias. But in the sake of KJ and discussing it with KJ, I believe there's a few things he can do to be considered the greatest of all time. Now, it may sound stout, and you can disagree with this. That's fine, folks. Like, this is just my opinion on the matter. But this season, if KJ Jefferson's going to be my greatest Razorback quarterback of all time, first and foremost, Arkansas has to win at least 10 games. Because right now, I have Ryan Mallett as the greatest quarterback, rest in peace, of all time at Arkansas. It's only because of his numbers, but he had that one big-time great season of winning 10 games and going to the Sugar Bowl. He was the quarterback for that. Think about Tyler Wilson. Some people may say he's top 3 quarterback of all time. Everyone's rankings are different, but not only did he have numbers to go along with it, but he also had a great year of winning 11 games. In fact, he's really been the only quarterback in Razorback history in the SEC that has won 11 games, and he was the starter. So it's like you give the nod to him. But besides that, people may bring up Joe Ferguson, people like Quinn Grovey, people like Matt Jones, but at the end of the day, it's like you got to have that year. You got to have that season. You got to have that team success, which some may say it's unfair because, it's just one player. It's just one position. But if I'm going to consider you the GOAT of quarterbacks, you got to have a GOAT season. Like you got to have a year to be remembered. All right? So you got to get to at least that 10-win mark. And that can be 10-2 with a bowl loss of 10-3, or it could be 9-3 with a bowl win of 10-3. Like, doesn't matter where the wins come and at what point. Just get to 10. So to me, KJ Jefferson has to get to 10 wins this season. That's number 1. Number 2, he has to have the game. And when I mean the game, I mean some sort of upset or some sort of performance or some sort of moment in some huge game where he gets the victory because of his clutch play down the stretch, because of his performance overall, whatever. It's a game that everyone remembers from that season as one of the most fun games, most entertaining games, one of the greatest games. And it was all because of KJ Jefferson and his immaculate play. Like, that's what people want to hear, and that's what people want to know about. So he's got to have one of those. Now, it could be against LSU on the road, like where he stands out and has that game. It could be against A&M. It could be against Bama. Those are really the 3 biggest games that Arkansas is going to have on their schedule this season. And, who's to know what teams will look like? Who knows? Maybe Auburn is a top 25, top 20 team when Arkansas plays them. That could be possible. So there could be some other things that could factor into what's going on in those games. But he's got to have that game where he leads the team. I remember against Mississippi State in 2021 when Arkansas was down, and they were able to get the touchdown, take the lead, and get the 2-point conversion as well. KJ Jefferson was a major part of that final drive to go down the field when they needed it the most to get the touchdown. Same thing against Ole Miss that same year. Made something about the Mississippi schools that he plays really well against, where they went down the field with almost no time and got the touchdown. Didn't get the 2-point conversion, but still made those plays. He's got to have some of those. He's got to have some of those games where he's got 5 or more touchdowns on the ground and in the air, like combined. 300 yards passing. Has some sort of great throw, something, great run, something that makes him stand out in that particular moment. So he's got to have a great season. He's got to have a great game, the game that really stands out. And then third, and I wouldn't say most importantly, but definitely one that will be able to separate himself from some of the all-time greats, is not only having the great season and the great game, which I think Razorback fans would sign up for right now, but KJ has to be, numbers-wise, stat-wise, efficient by not making a lot of mistakes. KJ has not made a lot of mistakes, folks. And I'm talking about if you compare it to what a lot of other quarterbacks have done in Razorback history, he has not thrown a lot of interceptions. He has not fumbled the ball a whole lot. He's not made a whole lot of bad choices. Now, again, I'm not saying he's not perfect, because we know, the A&M game was a bad one. We know that against Auburn at home when they lost in Fayetteville a couple years ago with that fumble. There's no doubt that there's been mistakes made. But this year, for him to be considered my greatest of all time, he has to limit those mistakes in the biggest moments especially. You don't want to have it happen to where you have a quarterback like KJ that's having a good year and could be considered a Heisman Trophy candidate or All-American or All-SEC or whatever. You don't want it to be that way, but then you look back and you're like, man, but he threw 12 interceptions or 13 interceptions. Or, man, he fumbled the ball way too much. Or, man, he had to he didn't stay healthy, which is another factor you could play into this as far as not making mistakes. I'm not saying that's his mistake, but just being on the field to be able to play. You can't have those things if you want to be considered the greatest. You just can't. So to me, if KJ does those three things, which I know is a lot, and some of you may disagree, but that's fine. But if he has a 10-win season, if he has the game, and if he limits his mistakes and stays on the field, does those things, he will be my greatest Razorback quarterback of all time. Call it recency bias or whatever you want, but that's just the way I feel. And that's the way I think it's going to end up being. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. I know buying to your tickets to favorite events like concerts, sporting events, Razorback games and whatnot can be really stressful and really annoying. But the thing about Gametime that separates them all from the other apps and other websites that you may buy from is that they're fast and they're easy and to buy tickets for everything. And I've done this before, like where they have killer deals on last-minute tickets and they get their best price guarantee. So you don't have to stress over the tickets and you start getting hyped for the fun you're going to have there in the sports world or the concerts or whatever. But I've had this happen before where I was trying to find tickets and it was getting gouged at a lot of places and the ticket prices were absurd. And I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I didn't want any part of it. But once I started using Gametime, I'm like, okay, this is different. This makes it to where it's easy, it's convenient, it's fast, it's affordable, and it does so much for me in all the different events that I want to go to where I feel like I'm not getting screwed over in the matter. And that's, to me, what's the most important deal. So snag your tickets without the stress by using Gametime. Download the Gametime app or create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. We have a very special guest joining us on the podcast today. As we know, it is football season for the Arkansas Razorbacks. That doesn't mean recruiting season is anytime going to end soon. And luckily for us, we were able to be joined by one of the big-time commitments of the 2026 class. It is the offensive lineman out of Georgia. It is Bear McWhorter. And Bear, appreciate you joining us, man. How you doing this afternoon?
Yes, sir. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's good to have you. So we'll start with this, and I don't know how many times you get it, but when I saw your name and that you committed to Arkansas, I was like, that's one of the greatest names I've ever seen. Like, that's incredible. So is your legal name, is it Bear, like Grizzly Bear? Like that is your actual name?
That's a nickname. My real name's Josh. I'm named after my dad, but they didn't want to have two Joshes in the house, I guess. So they got Bear on there. My mom wouldn't let my dad put on the birth certificate though. So everyone calls me Bear, but it's not on the birth certificate.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, Josh is a great name, but Bear's a lot cooler. So I'm just going to continue to call you Bear. So,
Yes,
so congratulations, of course, on your commitment to Arkansas. So I got to ask you and start here too. You got your 2026. Like you still got a lot of high school in front of you. You got a lot of seasons in front of you, and I know that recruiting has been ongoing and it starts at a young age. But what made you decide to commit to the Razorbacks now at this point in time in your high school career?
Committing early was something me and my family have always talked about. Go ahead and locking in a spot, focusing on one school. And I didn't think I was going to be this early, but I was ready. I had seen everything I wanted to, talk to everyone that I thought I needed to talk to. And just after the summer visit really with Coach Pittman, it really made me realize that Arkansas was the place I needed to be.
So what was it that Sam Pittman provided and in your recruiting that made you feel like Arkansas was it? Of all the schools that you could go to in the country, what was it that made you feel Arkansas was the place for you?
I think the first thing is just he's the O-line guy. I mean, I think personally he's the best offensive line coach in the country, and just having him as the main guy, the face of the program, it's really cool. And I think I could definitely learn a lot from him. I already did in camp this summer, and just having more years of that and place to call home with him leading it is pretty special. But that and just the relationship he has with my family, every head coach I've talked to, they've been really cool, super nice, great guys. But his relationship with my mom, with my sisters, it's just different. He's always asking about them, talking to them, doing whatever he can to make sure they're comfortable, and really just recruiting my whole family and not just me.
So obviously you got, again, a few years in front of you in high school, and there's probably some things that you're going to want to continue to improve on and work. I saw what you're at as far as size and weight. It seems like you're well on your way to being an SEC offensive lineman as far as physicality goes. But what's been some things that maybe either Sam Pittman or some scouts or whoever have told you that some of the things you're really going to work on and improve on as your high school career goes on?
Definitely got to improve on strength, just overall, mainly core strength, but also just getting my numbers up. I was only a freshman last year, so I'd only been lifting for a couple years versus guys that had been lifting for 5-6 years. And I think it showed on film a little bit. But there's also times it showed on film where sometimes it didn't matter and I could just go out there and whoop the guy in front of me. But I think overall just strength and developing to my body, that'd be the main thing.
So how often have you been to Arkansas and to the campus? Is it something you've taken a few visits to or just one visit? Like how's that gone as far as your times here in the state of Arkansas?
I want to say the last visit I went on this summer was number 6 to Arkansas. Wow. So I think I've been a regular there. I think most people in Fayetteville know my name, but I love it there. You know, I always want to go back.
Yeah. So what stood out to you when you went there? Because again, you talked about what Sam Pittman was talking to you about recruiting and you as a football player, but as far as the campus, the community, the city, and everything you've seen from facilities that the university offers, just what were some of the things that really stood out to you?
The place is beautiful. Just the area, Fayetteville, the campus, Dixon Street. It's all really nice. And the people there, they're some of the nicest people I've ever come across. Everyone I've talked to has a smile on their face. They're waving. They're seeing whatever they need to do to help me if I'm in a store, in a restaurant, or anything. So I think the average person you come across in Fayetteville, Arkansas will be nicer than 99% elsewhere. And it's just a beautiful area. So those two things combined, I mean, it's hard to beat.
So another thing that we of course, talked about on the podcast last week was another 2026 commitment from Wyatt Simmons. And he's out there in California, and he's a big-time player, kind of like yourself, could have gone really anywhere in the country. Is he a guy that maybe have you had any contact with or discussed anything with? Because I can't remember the last time Arkansas has had 2 pretty big-time commitments that are high school guys still 3 years out from graduating. Is he a guy maybe you've talked to or had discussions with or anything?
I talked to him after I originally committed, but that was the first time. You know, I had seen him on Twitter and Instagram, and I noticed he was also taking some visits to Arkansas, so made me think I'm not the only one that really likes this place, seeing other big guys go out there multiple times. But just seeing him commit, I committed right after him, but it was in my mind for a while, and we've been in contact recently since we both committed.
All right, so Bear, I want to ask you a few questions just about you, because I'm sure Razorback fans would like to get to know you a little bit more. Besides football, what are some of the things that you're into? Because I feel like, in Arkansas, anytime we talk to kids, they're always into hunting and fishing and everything. But as far as for you, like, what are some of the things that outside of football that you're into?
There's not much time outside of football, just training, lifting, all of that. But when I'm not doing any of that stuff, I'm hanging out with my family, my little sisters mainly. I watch them a lot and hang out with them all the time. But it's really family time. I'll go over to my grandparents' house with my cousin. So little things like that, but definitely not much time outside of football.
Yeah, I'm sure I can remember those times too, except I was never near as a recruit as high as you are. But still, it's probably something that takes up a lot of your time. And I think that's also like a question that people may have is like for you, since you still have time in front of you, not to say that you will, but there's always to say, well, will we stay committed through the next 3 years of high school? Because things change, high schools change, college football has been changing and everything. But what makes you believe not only that Arkansas is a place, but also as far as future recruiting? Are you taking any more visits? Will you take any more visits? Or are you fully said, hey, this is it, shutting it down, Arkansas is the place, not thinking about anything else?
I'm fully locked in. I won't be going anywhere else. I've had so many conversations with Coach Pitt and Coach Kennedy, and there's nowhere else I want to go see or check out or people I want to talk to. I'm good here. This is where I want to be.
Yeah. Well, so are you going to go to a lot of games, I'm sure this year when you can at least, or maybe try to check out some of those things?
I know I'm going to the BYU game, but we haven't had anything else scheduled, but hopefully get to multiple. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, before I let you get out of here, Bear, I was usually asked recruits and stuff if they have a nickname, but obviously you have one that's with Bear. So, but as far as your friends, because you're getting from Georgia, maybe a lot of them have never been to Arkansas or anything, but what was kind of the reaction from some of your teammates, your classmates, your friends and everything when you announced that you're going to continue your playing days in Arkansas? What was that reaction like?
I think anyone I've ever been close to over the last few years or I've talked to, it was kind of expected actually. They've kind of always been at the top of the list for me in terms of schools I like, and but outside of that, like people that just look at it from the outside looking in, I think they were a little surprised. If you look at my offer list, it's Bama, Georgia, Texas. So I think when people look at that, they're thinking, well, why wouldn't he go to one of those schools? But I just looked at what was really important to me, and I think Arkansas is the place.
Well, Razorback fans are rejoicing by that because I know they're excited to see you on campus. It'll be a few years, but they're excited about it. But Bear, hey, man, really appreciate you joining us. Great stuff. Congratulations on your commitment, and good luck the rest of your high school football career, man. We look forward to seeing you in Fayetteville here in a few years, all right?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Appreciate Bear McWhorter joining us here on the podcast. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Markel. From Fayetteville to El Dorado and everywhere in between, Markel has been helping Arkansas' small business community for over 30 years. Markel is a global specialty insurer with truly a people-first approach. To them, insurance is more than just a piece of paper. It's a promise to help people get back on their feet. We spend a third of our lives working, so on-the-job injuries can be expected. You work hard to build your business, so it's important to make sure that you and your employees have the right insurance coverage. Whether you're new to the business or celebrating 25 years, whether you have one employee or 1,000 employees, Markel aims to understand your workers' compensation insurance needs. Find a local independent agent to get a free workers' compensation insurance quote today at markelinsurance.com/lockedon. That's MARKEL insurance.com/lockedon. Markel, insuring America's small businesses since 1930. Insurance carrier coverage, dividends, and services availability may vary by state. Markel is a registered trademark of Markel Group, Incorporated.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so final segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. A question got thrown to me just the other day about the bowl game, and I know Arkansas has not even had played the game yet, but it was interesting because they were asking about the bowl games and how some people get really excited about bowl games, some people don't. Some players will move on from whatever bowl game it is to get to the next point of their NFL draft future. As we saw that with Traylon Burks when he opted out of the Outback Bowl to go to the NFL. I had no problem with that. So I just want to make that clear. But point is at what point in time do you get a certain bowl game where you'll have all the players all in and wanting to play, and even the players that might be going to the NFL in the next step? What bowl game would that be? And to me, it's got to be a New Year's Six bowl. I feel like a New Year's Six bowl would be the one that would have all the fans involved. Of course, they'd be pumped. But I think that's good enough also for the players to be like, you know what? I know I'm going to the NFL next year. I know I'm going to be a first, second round pick or whatever, but that's something I want to make sure I play in. It's something that means a lot. And means a lot to me, means a lot to the team, means a lot to the school, means a lot to the state. And so to me, at the end of the day, it would have to be a New Year's Six bowl. Anything less than that, and if a player stays, I'm not having any problem with it, but if a player leaves, I have no problem with that. Again, it's about their future and what they think is best. I have no problems with that. But at the end of the day, I think that would be a New Year's Six bowl. I mean, I would be excited about playing in a New Year's Six bowl. Not a national championship or anything, but I mean, New Year's Six is kind of like the new BCS, Kind of like you want to play in it because it's pretty prestigious. And who knows, it may be for the Sugar Bowl for Arkansas, or I don't even know. I got to look at what the bowl games are this year in the college football postseason. Cotton Bowl. I'm not going to complain, but it was just Cotton Bowl. You already played there before. But I'm not going to complain if they get in the Cotton Bowl. Not at all. So anyways, pretty fascinating little question. Let's just get the season started so I have to quit thinking about these stuff and just be able to actually see what the game's going on. That's what's most important. Appreciate everybody listening in to Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter, BuzzJohnNabors, for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.